On September 11, 2001 at 8:07 a.m., 39 minutes before Al-Qaeda terrorists flew American Airlines plane number 11 into the Twin Towers, a group of 9 Jewish businessmen stood at a nearby shul waiting for a minyan. Normally, there would have been more than enough people filling the minyan, but that morning, over 100 people were at the shloshim of Jews killed in a Grand Canyon helicopter crash. So that day, they only had 9 people at the minyan. And completely unaware of the tragedy that was about to take place, the men began losing patience. These were serious men and they were professionals, and all of them had to be at their desks in the World Trade Center well before 9 a.m. At 8:11 a.m., 35 minutes before the horror began, the men were sitting in shul impatiently tapping their watches, and one of them got up and said, "Let's just stop and be yachidus. I have a meeting at 9. I gotta go." Another guy says, "No, let's just wait a few more minutes." So they waited some more, and at 8:15, 31 minutes before the first plane burst through the first tower, one man got up and said, "Okay, I'm leaving. I'll just daven in my office." And just as he was about to pick up his talis bag and walk out, they heard the door of the shul creak open, and an elderly man they've never seen before walked into the shul, marched right up to the Amud, and declared, "I have yahrzeit, and I must daven." So the man, about to leave, sat back down in his seat, and at 8:17, 29 minutes before the plane began its slaughter of thousands of people, the old man started davening. And unlike the other members of the minyan, he was in no rush. He had yahrzeit, and he was going to make it count. Excruciatingly slowly, the men carefully uttered the words. And the other men wanted to leave, but stuck there to ensure there was a minyan. The other men stayed until the very last amen. The very minute the old man finished saying Kaddish at the end of davening, at exactly 8:45, the men picked up their belongings and ran outside, only to see a sight that remained seared into their minds forever. A plane crashing into the World Trade Center, setting the entire building on fire, and they stopped in their tracks, and they looked up at the smoke, and they looked up at the death, and they looked up at the fire, and they looked up to see the dozens of people jumping from the top floors of the buildings to their horrible deaths below. They looked up and realized that that could have been them. Had that minyan finished even 3 minutes earlier, they would have been dead. They then realized that that seemingly ordinary old man who just happened to show up at the shul probably wasn't so ordinary. And they ran back in to see who he was, but he was gone. Gone to help the next Jew from his plight. Gone to teach the next Torah scholar, gone to help the next young widow feed her children. And the men looked at the empty shul and realized that if not for that mysterious old man, they would be a pile of ash. They went back outside and they ran for their lives. Sometimes the people who seem to slow you down in life, the people who arrive late, the people who interrupt your plans, the people who hold you back, might just be doing far more than you realize. In that moment, it might feel frustrating, but sometimes that very person is a messenger from above. Sometimes that delay is your salvation, because heaven doesn't always show up in thunder and lightning. Sometimes it shows up as an annoying neighbor, or a long-winded friend, or a detour that drives you crazy. Sometimes salvation wears the face of inconvenience. Sometimes Eliyahu HaNavi comes disguised as the one person you wish would just leave you alone. Because in life, you never know. Maybe, just maybe, that person was sent your way to reroute your fate and save your life.